The rankings from the National Teachers Union on teacher pay and school fundings are in. Idaho, for the second year in a row, placed dead last on the per pupil spending, or per student spending, I should say. Now, Idaho also ranks 45th in average teacher salary. The low rankings are becoming the new norm, so to speak. But why? And what do Idaho policymakers believe can pull us out from being underfunded or less funded? Here's our Katya Stepovic.
In the National Education Association's annual rankings and estimate report from 2020 to 2021, the national average spent per student was over $14,000. Idaho's spending per student was $8,376, which brought the state to dead last, number 51.
There has been a long-standing neglect, honestly, of public education in Idaho.
Unfortunately for some policymakers, the ranking doesn't come as a surprise.
We've been there for a while, and we're going to have to really have a long, hard conversation on how we improve that.
The average salary for public school teachers across the country was $65,000. Idaho's average teacher salary was around $51,000, coming in at number 45 in the country.
Unfortunately, we were one of 3 states where they declined our salaries when you put inflation on there. And then you're saying you want professional teachers. Well, there's a two-edged sword.
One of the most important measures for student success is having an experienced, well-supported educator in the classroom.
Mike Journey, spokesperson for the Idaho Education Association, says the findings of the below-average salaries come at a time where over half of Idaho teachers are considering leaving the industry.
We are still way behind, and we still have a long way to go in order to bring Idaho on par with other states, especially the surrounding states, where our educators can go to work for much more money, for better benefits.
Representative Sally Toon on the Senate Education Committee says it starts by updating Idaho's funding formula. According to Toon, the state divvies out a set amount of funding to school districts, and if it's not enough, local school districts have to run supplemental levies to make up the difference in the funding, which she believes can be problematic.
We have to look real close at the funding formula, because when we have districts such as Blaine County, Coeur d'Alene, that have property values that are very, very high, and when they pass a levy, they can pass it for more when you have population, when you have a district that has, I'll take Dietrich again, or Bliss, Idaho, that has 180 students. You don't have the ability to collect that tax. I would like to see the funding formula be readjusted to account for our student numbers. Truly, let's talk about a small school district, whether we have 10 kids in that classroom or 30 kids, it's going to cost the same.
Chairman of the House Education Committee, Lance Clow, says that won't be enough.
Changing the funding formula by itself doesn't solve a problem. It's more money into the formula that solves the problem.
And he says more money is coming.
We are on a glide path to make dramatic changes to teachers' salaries, and you can find that in the Idaho Code, which I shared with you. So you can see that over the next few years, there's going to be dramatic increases in the appropriations from the state.
The recent rankings don't reflect the 12.5% increase in K-12 funding that was approved in Idaho's most recent legislative session.
I think it's hard to move the needle when you know that other states, especially towards the bottom, are investing more and more every year also.
But the ranking report didn't move Idaho down in every category. Idaho ranked 29 when it comes to salaries for starting teachers, with an average of $39,842, slightly below the national average. And some are encouraged that additional state funding in years to come will only increase the good work coming out of Idaho schools.
Our members are very appreciative to policymakers for what happened this past legislative session.
It will change some of those numbers, a few slots, because every time you go up 1 or 2, the morale and the nice side of our public education system, we have to, ring the bell on, because those are wins.
Now, the State Board of Education is taking an approach looking ahead. They did send me a statement. I'll read it to you. It says in part, the State Board is focused right now on how we best leverage the 12.5% increase in state funding for education provided by the legislature and the governor early this year. That's that 12.5% you heard. Now, it may be the biggest single year investment in the state education funding in the history of our state, and we believe it will make a big difference for students, teachers, and our public education system as a whole. So now we'll just have to see if that 12.5 increase gets Idaho up on all these rankings.
Well, it's really interesting, too, because you have two sides of this argument. Some people say you need to throw more money at this. We need to invest more. Others say we don't need more money. We just need to utilize the money we already have better.
And we're just going to have to see what practice works out.
Yeah.
It sounds like more funding is not a bad thing at this point.
No, well, I'll tell you, the educators we talk to will never say no to extra money if it'll help, invest in their classrooms. Well, Katya, I know we'll stay on top of this, especially into the legislature. For now, though, we will step aside. The 208 continues right after this.